ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। शृण्वतां स्वपिता कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तना हृदयन्तस्थो हि अभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहित्रतम् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवति उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। Krishna will be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 25, verses 14 through 16. Rakaro Pavanatala Parikhe Akshatoranai Swarnaropya Sai Shringhai Sankulam Sarvato Grahai. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. That city was surrounded by walls and parks, and within it were towers, canals, windows, and outlets. The houses there were decorated with domes made of gold, silver, and iron. Purport: the body is protected by walls of skin. The hairs on the body are compared to parks, and the highest parts of the body, like the nose, the head, are compared to towers. The wrinkles and depressions on different parts of the body are compared to trenches or canals. Eyes are compared to windows. The eyelids are compared to protective gates. The three types of metal, gold, silver, and iron, represent the three modes of material nature. Gold represents goodness, silver passion, and iron ignorance. The body is also sometimes considered to be a bag containing three elements, tridhatu, mucus, bile, and air, kapha, pitta, and vayu, yasyatma buddhi, gnapetritaduk. According to Bhagavatam 10.84.13, one who considers this bag of mucus, bile, and air to be the self is considered to be no better than a cow or an ass. Nila svatika vaidulya mukta mara katarunai kulpaharmya stalin deeptam shriya bhagavatamiva. The floors of the houses in that city were made of sapphire, crystal, diamonds, pearls, emeralds, and rubies. Because of the luster of the houses in the capital, the city was compared to the celestial town named Bhagavati. In the city of the body, the heart is considered to be the capital, just as the capital of a state is especially gorgeously filled with various high buildings and lustrous palaces. The heart of the body is filled with various desires and plans for material enjoyment. Such plans are sometimes compared to valuable jewels such as sapphires, rubies, pearls, and emeralds. The heart becomes the center for all planning for material enjoyment. Sabat chatvara ratyabhir akridaya tanapane chaitya dhvaja patakabhir yuktam vidruma vedibhi. Translation: in that city, there were many assembly houses, street crossings, streets, restaurants, gambling houses, markets, resting places, flags, festoons, and beautiful parks. All these surrounded the city. In this way, the capital is described. In the capital, there are assembly houses and many squares, many street crossings, avenues, and streets, many gambling places, markets, and places of rest, all decorated with flags and festoons. The squares are surrounded with railings and are devoid of trees. The heart of the body can be compared to the assembly house. For the living entity within the heart, along with the Paramatma, and thus the heart is the center of all remembrance, forgetfulness, and deliberation. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 15.15, Sarvasya chaham hridi anivishto matta smritirjnanam apohanam cha. In the body, the eyes, ears, and nose are different places of attraction for sense enjoyment. The streets, for going hither and thither, may be compared to different types of air blowing within the body. The yogic process for controlling the air within the body and different nerves is called shushumna. The path of liberation. The body is also a resting place because when a living entity becomes fatigued, he takes rest within the body. Palms and the soles of the feet are compared to flags and festoons. That concludes the reading. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम् नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामी इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वतीदेवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे राम राम हरे हरे. Krishna everyone. So today I'll just share my thoughts on these verses 14 through 16. And as people have probably mentioned throughout the reading, these verses are forming part of the allegory that is the story of King Paranjana. And as mentioned in these verses, the capital city is symbolizing the human body. And Srila Prabhupada is carefully explaining how the imagery of the city and the different parts of the city teach us about our own situation as conditioned souls. And along the way, he also mentions Srimad Bhagavatam, uh, Canto 10, Chapter 84, and Bhagavad Gita 15.15, which really deepen the meaning of these few verses. So starting with the first verse, verse 14, this verse is describing the city surrounded by the walls, parks, and with towers, canals, windows, and gates and domes. So the purport, uh, the meaning of each of these parts of the city is simply explained. To put it simply, the walls of the skin protect the body, the hairs are compared to parks, the nose and head are towers, the wrinkles are trenches, the eyes are windows, the eyelids are gates, and the three metals that make up the domes, gold, silver, and iron, are representing the three modes of material nature. And importantly, Prabhupada reminds us that the body itself is just a bag of mucus, bile, and air, which is referred to as Tridhatu. And then this leads directly into the famous warning that we see in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10. And this verse directly states that one who thinks the self is simply this body made of mucus, bile, and air, and who identifies with family, land, and rituals without approaching the wise, is no better than a cow or an ass. So here there's a clear warning that if we mistake the decorated city, if we really mistake our own body for the real self, that means that we're living in an illusion. And in the next verse, um, it's describing the jeweled floors, sapphire, crystal, diamonds, pearls, emeralds, and rubies, so lustrous that the city is compared to the celestial town Bhogavati. So here in the purport, it's again mentioned that the heart is the capital of the body. And uh, just as the capital is filled with a lot of splendid palaces, important buildings, and whatnot, the heart is filled with endless material desires and plans. And all these plans are glittering like jewels, but they're illusory treasures. All they do is bind our soul further into material enjoyment. So while the body may seem attractive and may look attractive, its real function is only to serve as a temporary dwelling. And all the jewels that are there within this heart, within the capital, um, they may shine outwardly, but in reality, they're actually a distraction to us. And those jewels are representing all the attachments that we have. So moving on to the final verse. Here it's described uh, all the assembly houses, the squares, the places, the gambling houses, the resting places. It's mentioned that all of them are beautifully decorated with flags and festoons. So these are representing the many avenues of sense enjoyment in the body, the eyes, ears, nose, etc. And we see that today in modern society, the amount of uh, catalysts that are there out in the world that are triggering these avenues of sense enjoyment has increased so much, uh, especially in capitalistic countries. There'll be a billboard every few meters, which is uh, attracting the eyes. If you walk into a grocery store, there'll be red signs everywhere. There's always music playing in any store that you walk into, getting people to speed up and buy things. The moment you open your phone, there's short form content, which is attracting both your eyes and your ears and so on. So, uh, modern society is making it more and more difficult for us to let go of this sense enjoyment. And moving on to the next part of the purport, the heart is compared to the assembly house. And that's because this is where both the soul and the Paramatma reside. And here Prabhupada is quoting Bhagavad Gita 15.15. And this verse directly states that the Lord is situated in everyone's heart, and from him comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So this is the real contrast. So while the conditioned soul uses the heart to plan for for material enjoyment, like how it was mentioned, the capital city, the Supreme Lord, who is actually situated in that same heart, he is gently offering us remembrance, knowledge, and intelligence to return to him. So even though this city is full of distraction, the path of liberation is also there. It's also hidden there within. And it could only be found by following the Lord's guidance and by understanding that the Paramatma is actually situated within us. So, again, going through uh, the whole map now that was revealed to us today. So, the 14th verse shows the body structure, but it warns against misidentifying with it. And within the purport, Prabhupada mentions Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 10, where it reinforces that bodily identification makes us no better than animals. And in the next verse, verse 15, that's showing us the heart's glittering desires, which are compared to jewels. But we are warned in the purport that they're doing nothing but binding us. And in verse 16, we see the assembly house of the heart, where the Paramatma is also present. And in the purport, Bhagavad Gita 15.15 is mentioned to remind us that beyond all this illusion and attachment, there's divine guidance that is always available. So the lesson is that we're not just the city itself, but we're the soul that's actually living inside of it. And Paramatma is also seated beside us, and all he's doing is waiting for us to turn to him. So to understand this further, um, uh, King Paranjana is of course a great story, an example that we're reading about right now. But we also have Ajamil from Canto 6. And we all know the story of Ajamil. He was originally a pure Brahmana, but he became distracted by a prostitute and he spent his like the rest of his life pretty much absorbed in, family attachment and material plans. And he was identifying with his body, his wife, and his children. And this is exactly what the illusion condemned in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.84.13, that we shouldn't be identifying with these things. But he ended up fully identifying with all these material aspects. And finally, when death came, he was terrified when the Yamadutas came to drag him away. Right? He saw how they came in numbers, uh, with such a frightening appearance, to take him away, to the lower realms. And he was so scared that he started calling out his son's name, and his son's name just so happened to be Narayana. And this remembrance of the Lord's name, even though it wasn't known to him, actually reached the Lord, right? Actually touched the Lord. And the Vishnudutas come and they fight with the Yamadutas, get rid of them, and they take Ajamil back with them just because he mentioned the Lord's name towards the end of his life. And this shows that, Krishna, he never abandons us, he never abandons the soul. And if we turn to him, even accidentally, like how Ajamil did, he will deliver us, as long as we have that faith. And another story about is how Draupadi completely surrenders to Krishna. And this is also referenced in the first canto of Bhagavatam. So when Draupadi was being disrobed, she first tried to defend herself, which is very, natural and understandable, of course, in such a horrible situation. But um, if we want to further understand, this was a body conscious effort, right? When she's trying to defend herself. So first she looked towards her husbands who were in the place. And this is representing the family identification that all of us have. Um, and finally, she raised her hands and she called out, Hey Govinda. And at that moment, that's when the Lord in the heart gave her that remembrance, and he appeared and gave her uh, help by providing unlimited cloth. And this is the exact opposite of being what's called a gokara, an animal. And it's what happens when we turn inward to the real protector instead of and understanding that we have to rely on him and there's no other option. And that real protector is situated within the heart, as Paramatma, as explained in these verses. So to conclude, the body may look like, such a grand city with all these walls, jewels, and parks, but it it's all temporary and misleading. And if we identify the body alone, that's how we end up in ignorance. The real treasure lies beyond this, and it's in recognizing that the Paramatma is within the heart. And it's actually He who is supplying us with the remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So the only way to turn to Him is through bhakti, through this bhakti process. And that's how we can transcend the bodily illusion and return back home, back to Godhead. So, and the only way to do that in this yuga, as we all know, is to chant the holy name. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. That's all I have prepared today. Please forgive me for any shortcomings, and I seek the blessings of all the senior Vaishnavas assembled here so that I can serve better and understand better